Hello everyone, I am someone who has lived for 89 years, experiencing countless ups and downs, joys and regrets. When you've nearly lived a century, you realize that life isn't just about what you've been through, it's about the lessons you take from it. And today, I want to share with you one of my biggest regrets. A decision that, if I could go back in time, I would think twice before making. I once believed that moving into a nursing home was a good choice. My family encouraged me, saying I would be well cared for, free from worries about health, meals, or anything else. I, too, thought it would be a safe place where I could enjoy my later years in peace. But reality turned out to be very different from what I had imagined. If you're considering a nursing home for yourself or your parents, take a few minutes to listen. I'm going to share 6 things I wish I had known before moving in. These might change your perspective. They might help you avoid walking down the same path of regret that I did. Before we begin, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever thought about living in a nursing home? Do you have any concerns about life there? Leave a comment below. Your story could help others gain a better understanding. Also, if you're interested in stories about aging, life experiences, and valuable lessons, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. This isn't just a place for me to share. It's a space for all of us to learn together and find better ways to make aging a meaningful journey. Now, let's start with the first regret. Losing the sense of purpose in life. Have you ever thought about what makes each day meaningful? It's not just the big events or the unforgettable moments. It's the small daily habits, the ordinary tasks that seem so trivial, yet give life its rhythm. Back when I was still living at home, I had a simple morning routine. I would make myself a cup of coffee, open the window to welcome the morning sunlight, and take my time watering the plants on my porch. It was nothing special, yet it gave me a deep sense of purpose. A feeling that I was still in control of my own life. Each day I had things to do, things to look forward to. I could fix a wobbly table, sweep the yard, or simply fold my blankets neatly after waking up. These little tasks made me feel useful, like I still mattered. Then I moved into the nursing home, and everything changed. Here, meals are prepared for me. My bed is made by staff every morning, my clothes are washed, and I don't have to worry about housework. Sounds comfortable, right? At first, I thought so too. I told myself, I've worked hard my whole life. Now it's time to rest. But after a few weeks, I came to a terrifying realization. I had nothing left to do. No small tasks to start my day. Nothing to look forward to. Day after day, my routine became a meaningless cycle. Eat, sleep, take a short walk around the facility, then eat and sleep again. And then, I finally understood something important. When you lose your sense of purpose, you're not really living anymore. You're just existing. I'm not the only one who feels this way. I remember George, a talented carpenter. He used to craft beautiful tables and chairs that everyone in the neighborhood loved. But when he moved into the nursing home, there was no more workshop, no more tools, no more customers who needed his skills. At first, he tried to keep himself busy, but soon the motivation faded. One day I asked him, "Do you still make furniture?" George sighed and shook his head. "There's no reason to anymore." And so, he would just sit on a chair in the hallway for hours, staring into the distance, uninterested in everything around him. Regret 2. Losing connection with the outside world. When I was still living at home, I felt like I was part of the world. I could go outside whenever I wanted, talk to neighbors, visit my favorite grocery store, or simply take a walk in the park and watch life unfold around me. But when I entered the nursing home, I realized I had become separated from the outside world. At first, I thought I could keep up with my old habits. I told myself I would call my friends, have visitors, and keep up with the news like I always did. But soon, I realized it wasn't that simple. Here, I couldn't just go out whenever I wanted. If I wanted to leave, I had to ask for permission. I needed someone to accompany me. And as my world became smaller, confined within four walls, I slowly started feeling like I no longer belonged to the world outside. I remember one time an old friend called me and said, "We miss you. When will you come out so we can meet?" I smiled and replied, "Maybe next time." But deep down, I knew there wouldn't be a next time. I couldn't just get up, walk out the door, and go see them like I used to. Little by little, I lost touch with the people I once knew. My old friends continued living their lives. They met up, joined activities, and stayed connected with the community. And I was here, watching from the sidelines, unable to be part of it anymore. Even with my family, the distance grew. They still loved me. They still called. But I was no longer part of their everyday lives like I once was. The world outside kept moving forward, while I could only watch from afar. Regret 3. Losing my privacy. It wasn't until I moved into a nursing home that I truly understood what it meant to lose my independence. From the very first day, I felt like I was constantly being watched. Medical staff came in and out of my room on a strict schedule. They were just doing their job, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost my right to be alone, my own personal space. Even the simplest things were no longer mine to control. I remember my first week here. I wanted to take a shower by myself, but I wasn't allowed to. At the nursing home, bathing must be supervised. Not because I couldn't do it on my own, but because they worried I might slip and fall. I understood their concern, but it was hard to accept that something I had done independently my whole life now required permission. Then, there was using the bathroom. If I needed help, I had to press a call button and wait. Sometimes, the wait was longer than I expected, and I hated that feeling. The feeling of not even having control over my most basic needs. Privacy in daily life was another issue. Not everyone here has a private room. Many people have to share a space with a stranger, someone they didn't choose. I was lucky to have a decent roommate, but not everyone is that fortunate. I've heard stories of people stuck with loud, difficult, or even mentally unstable roommates, making it impossible for them to get a good night's sleep. But what hurt the most wasn't just losing my privacy. It was losing my dignity. When you're strong and independent, you never think about the day when you might have to rely on others for everything, when you'll be treated like a patient rather than a person with their own choices. But in a nursing home, I realized I was no longer an individual. I was just another name on a list of residents who needed care. The little things I once took for granted were suddenly gone. When someone knocked on my door but didn't wait for me to answer before stepping inside. When I was spoken to as a patient, rather than as a person. When my daily schedule was decided by someone else, not me. All of this changed me. I started feeling like I wasn't myself anymore. So, if you're considering a nursing home for yourself or a loved one, ask yourself, are you ready to give up your privacy and control over your own life? Because once it's gone, getting it back is not so easy. Regret 4. No longer eating the foods I love. When I was still living at home, I could eat whatever I wanted. If I craved fried eggs and crispy toast in the morning, I could make it in my own kitchen. If I wanted a juicy burger from my favorite diner, I could place an order or drive there myself. Food wasn't just about nutrition. It was joy, memories, and a part of life. But here, the weekly menu is planned out in advance. Meals are prepared according to standard dietary guidelines. I understand that it's meant to be healthy, But it also means I no longer have the freedom to eat what I truly enjoy. Breakfast is always oatmeal or boiled eggs, no other options. Lunch is often soup, plain roasted chicken, and steamed vegetables. If I don't like what's being served that day, too bad. There are no alternatives. I remember one time, I told a staff member that I was really craving a homemade burger with smoky grilled meat, melted cheese, and a rich sauce. They smiled and said, "Sorry, we only serve meals according to the standard menu." I understood the rules, but that didn't make it any easier to accept. I realized that the meals I once took for granted were now a luxury. It's not just the food itself, it's how we eat. Everything here is made bland, with less seasoning, softer textures, and no crunch. No more crispy fried foods, no more spicy dishes, no more casual outdoor meals on a beautiful summer afternoon. Even special occasions aren't the same. I remember how every year on my birthday, my daughter would bake me a homemade apple pie, flaky, golden crust with warm, cinnamon-scented apples inside. But on my first birthday here, I was given a small sugar-free cupcake instead, because it was healthier for the elderly. I smiled and thanked them, but inside, I felt like something was missing. So, if you're thinking about a nursing home, ask yourself, can you accept not being able to eat the foods you love? Can you accept not having the freedom to decide what you want to eat each day? Regret 5. My health declined faster than I expected. When I was living at home, I always had reasons to stay active. I did my own grocery shopping, cooked my own meals, and cleaned my own house. I enjoyed gardening, sweeping leaves in my yard, and taking walks in the nearby park to breathe in the fresh air. These small daily activities kept me moving and kept my body strong. I never thought I would become weak, because I was always doing things for myself. But here, I don't have to do anything. Meals are brought to the table. My clothes and bedding are washed and folded for me. Even if I want a glass of water, someone is ready to bring it to me. At first, I thought this was great. After a lifetime of hard work, I finally got to rest. But what I didn't realize was that the less I did, the weaker I became. At first, I still tried to take daily walks, but since there was no real reason to move around much, I slowly became lazy. I sat more, I laid down more, and within just a few months, I noticed my legs weren't as strong as before. And by the time I realized it, it was already too late. I wasn't the only one. I remember Alyssa, a woman who was full of energy when she first arrived. Before coming here, she used to walk for at least an hour every morning. She would always talk excitedly about the beautiful routes she explored. But here, she no longer had a reason to go for walks. Everything was taken care of. Slowly, she started walking less. Then she stopped altogether. Within a few months, she couldn't walk far anymore. And after a year, she needed a wheelchair. I've seen this happen to so many people. When you stop using your body, you lose it. No one warned me about this before I moved in. I thought that living here would keep me healthier, but instead, I lost the opportunity to maintain my own health. So if you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you willing to trade your physical health for convenience? Regret 6. The feeling of being forgotten. Before I moved into the nursing home, my family promised they would visit often. I believed them. And at first, they did. My daughter came every week, bringing me my favorite pastries. My grandchildren were still excited to visit, telling me about school and their little adventures. Back then, I still felt connected to my old life. But as time passed, things changed. The visits became less frequent. My daughter got busier. She stopped coming every week and started visiting only once a month. My grandkids grew older, with new interests and responsibilities. Slowly, The visits were replaced by quick phone calls, short and rushed. I remember one time my son called and said, "Dad, I'm really busy this week. I can't make it. I'll visit next week, okay?" I smiled and said it was fine. But after I hung up, I sat quietly by the window wondering if next week would actually come. Holidays were the hardest. I had hoped my family would visit, but one by one, they all had reasons. Work, kids, other plans. I don't blame them. I know they still love me. But life moves on for them while I remain here, stuck in a place that no longer feels like home. When you're no longer part of their daily lives, it's easy for them to think you're fine, that you've adjusted, that you don't need as much attention as before. And one day you realize you have become forgotten. Regret 7. Leaving a nursing home isn't as easy as you think. When I first decided to move in, I told myself it was only temporary. I thought I would give it a try, and if I didn't like it, I could leave anytime. I believed I still had a choice, that I was still in control of my own life. But I didn't realize that once you're here, leaving isn't as simple as it seems. At first, I thought that if things didn't work out, I could just go back home. But I never expected that the home I once knew would no longer be mine. With the best intentions, my family made changes. Some of my cherished belongings were sold or donated because they thought I wouldn't need them anymore. They started considering renting out the house for extra income. Bit by bit, the things that were once mine were replaced, and before I knew it, the home I had loved was no longer a place I could return to. I remember the first time I told my family that I wanted to move back home. There was a long silence before they responded. "Dad, are you sure you can manage on your own? It's safer for you here. We just want what's best for you." I knew they meant well, but I also understood that they had already adjusted to life without me at home. Their lives had moved on, and the idea of me returning worried them more than it made them happy. And then, reality hit. My body was no longer the same. After months of living in a place where I didn't need to cook, clean, or move around much, I had lost a part of the independence I once had. I felt weaker, slower. I was no longer confident that I could manage on my own, and that fear kept me here. I've met many others who thought just like I did, that a nursing home was only temporary. But they soon realized that leaving was no longer a practical option. Some had completely lost the chance to return home because their houses had been sold. Others found that their savings had been drained by the high costs of nursing home care, leaving them without enough money to live independently. And just like that, the choice they thought they had was gone before they even realized it. Aging is inevitable. I don't regret growing old. I don't regret the highs and lows of my life. But what I do regret is believing that a nursing home was my only choice. I thought it would make life easier, safer, and more comfortable. But I didn't understand how high the cost of that convenience would be. Nursing homes aren't necessarily bad. I know some people genuinely feel at peace here. I know that for some, there is no other option. But if I could do it all over again, I would do everything I could to stay at home for as long as possible. I would build a better support system, look into alternatives like in-home caregivers, living with family, or joining independent senior communities where I could still have some control over my own life. So if you're considering a nursing home for yourself or a loved one, think carefully. Don't choose it just because it seems like the easiest path. Don't let convenience take away the things that truly matter. Don't wait until it's too late to realize that some things, once lost, can never be regained. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think a nursing home is a good option? Or do you have other ideas for a happier way to grow old? And if my story resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is where I share the lessons I've learned from nearly a century of life. If my experience can help you, or someone you love, make a better choice, then I believe it's worth sharing. Thank you for listening. Live your life in a way that, when you look back, you have no regrets.